And Mr Dutton's put Jacinta Price into government efficiency. Are we going to see some Trump-style initiatives here?
Well, we're an Australian political party and we're a sovereign nation, and we'll be having a range of initiatives that are what we determine are in our national interest, and Jacinta will be at the heart of finding those efficiencies and savings and rooting out the waste that the Labor Party has engaged in over the last 2.5 years. Because frankly, when family budgets are stretched, what we need is some discipline in the federal budget, and that has been completely absent, with more than $300 billion of new spending added by this government over 3 budgets. We do need to rein in that wasteful and reckless spending, because it is putting upward pressure on interest rates, and that is keeping inflation higher for longer than it should be.
Well, you heard the Prime Minister on our program this morning. He thinks he's always been underestimated and can win this election. What do you think?
Well, this election will be very competitive. It will be very close. The polls are indicating that federal elections in Australia are almost always very competitive and very close. I think as we get closer to the election, though, the choice is going to be clear. It is either going to be a returned Albanese Labor government in minority in some form of coalition with the Teals and the Greens, or it will be a Dutton coalition majority government. I think that's the only 2 choices that are likely to be available to the Australian people on election day. And if they do want to get our country back on track, if they do think they cannot afford another 3 years like the last 3, then the only choice is a change of government, and that's by voting for your coalition candidate.
And he said, the PM, he said, had Mr Dutton been in power the past 3 years, inflation would have been worse. He also appeared to say his promise to cut power bills by $275 at the last election was not a broken promise, because the world had changed since then. What did you make of all that?
Well, the Prime Minister's broken a number of promises, whether it's on superannuation, whether it's on personal income tax cuts, whether it's on his $275 promise of reduced power bills. And the Reserve Bank Governor has been very clear about inflation. She has said it is a homegrown phenomenon. It is not something that's being driven from overseas anymore. And it's very clear that the decisions of this government have made the inflation crisis facing Australians much worse. Again, the RBA in their monthly minutes regularly call out public demand, in other words, government spending, as being a contributing factor to inflation and interest rates being higher in Australia than they otherwise would be, when other like-minded democracies like New Zealand and Canada and the United States and the United Kingdom have all significantly reduced their interest rates over the last year. Australia has not, and Australians are paying the price for Anthony Albanese's weakness and his recklessness on public spending.